Double-Edged Destiny, a Fractures Alternative Universe fanfiction, by Doglover61402 / The Christian Ninja. Chapter 4, The Second Alliance. The time is after Chapter 3, Destiny Decided, and the setting is the end in Dragonspire. Sarris looked at the duffel bag in the corner of her room, packed for an upcoming visit to the Overworld. The Ender Watchers and their new allies agreed that Sarris should stay with the Frostbourne for 2 months. Her visit would strengthen the alliance and allow them to plan an attack against Herobrine, a warlord leading the undead. Although she knew that her trip away from home served a good purpose, she dreaded leaving the End for 2 months. Leaving the home and people she knew and recognized placed an anxious knot in her stomach. Sarris walked to her desk and slid open its drawer. She dug through all the disorganized items thrown in the drawer and retrieved an old photograph, which had been lying upside down in the back. She looked at the front side of the picture for the first time in a few decades, confronted with the image of herself and a former friend, Lord Lance. "Everything changed when you showed your true colors," she muttered. Her former best friend, who was also her cousin, had betrayed everyone over 150 years ago. Losing her closest friend had destroyed her trust, causing Ceris to fear strangers. Ever since the war, she had kept herself closed off from everyone except Vortis, Zeg, and the only remaining member of her biological family. Vortis knocked on her door. Although it was already open, he had always been considerate by knocking. "Are you almost ready? We told the Frostbourne you would be arriving in 10 minutes, remember?" Alarmed by the Dragon Seer's sudden arrival, Sarris hastily shoved the photo back into its hiding spot. "Vortis!" For some reason, she had always kept his picture a secret, not wanting anyone to see that she still longed for her old friend. "What?" he asked in a confused tone. His confusion indicated that he had not seen her holding the picture. "Don't sneak up on me like that," Sarris replied as she closed the drawer on her desk. Vortis teleported next to Sarris. "Are you okay? You've been acting more anxious than you normally are for a few weeks, and you seemed, more upset than usual after the meeting today." Sarris shrugged. "How would you feel if the person you're stuck sharing destiny with calls you a dumb office lady?" She cast her eyes to the floor, trying to avoid fully answering Vortis' question and concerned gaze. She knew the answer to this question. She was not okay. Feeling okay had ended when the war with Lance ended. "You did not answer my question," Vortis said as he put his hand on her shoulder. A look of worry wrinkled his face. Sarah sighed. Her Enderman father figure cared for her, but so many things felt wrong in her life that she did not know how to tell him everything. She decided to start with the current issue on her mind. "No, I'm not okay. Even though I'm going to stay with our new allies, I don't want to leave the End for 2 months. I don't know anyone there. And while most of them seem nice, I can't see myself becoming close with any of them. Besides, Sir Patrick seems like a jerk, and the Dragon Tamer guy definitely hates me. I'd rather stay here with you and Zeg. I feel safe and comfortable around you two. Plus, we've got this investigation going on with our informants. How can I leave at a time like this?" Vortis chuckled and picked Sarris up. "You're terrible at conducting investigations that don't involve swords. I can handle this investigation far better than you can. We all know that you're the best person to stay in the overworld out of the 3 of us, since you've always been the one to handle relations with those outside of the End." Although Sarris was fairly smart, Vortis knew she would quickly become frustrated with the investigation. Her expertise tended to be in the battle, while his was more scholarly. Sarris wrapped her arms around Vortis. While his embrace was comforting, it served to remind her that she would be leaving home for a while. "I know there's practical reasons for me to be the one to leave, but I... Her voice trailed off. Neither of them spoke for a moment. "You do not want to leave. I know," Vortis said with a sigh. "Sarris, you isolated yourself and became depressed after we banished Lance. I know that was hard for you, but it's been 150 years. Maybe this trip to the overworld will help you overcome these feelings. Try to make a new friend." Sarris laughed a little, comforted somewhat by his words. Vortis often managed to read her mind. "A new friend? What am I, a kid?" Vortis smiled. "I mean it, Ceris." He set her back on the floor and glanced at her bag. "Please tell me you brought more clothes than just a sweatshirt and shorts. You'll need your heavy coat since their territory is cold. Also, since you are the queen, I hope you packed some formal clothes to wear." He knew the end matriarch had a habit of only wearing her old hoodie and shorts. Ceris rolled her eyes. "Stop judging what I wear." The setting is at the Frostbourne castle. A loud knocking sound forced Rain out of his short nap. He glanced at the clock, which read 5:37 p.m. He groaned. After being kicked out of the Alliance meeting, he had hoped to be left alone. Rain stretched as he got out of his bed while the knocking on the door continued angrily. "I'm coming," Rain grumbled as he rubbed his eyes. "Hurry up!" Rain recognized Patrick's voice. The man was angry, as usual, and he was probably here to punish Rain for his behavior during the meeting. Rain opened the door and stared at this unwelcome visitor in irritation. "What do you want?" he asked, expecting Patrick to punch his face in a few seconds. Patrick huffed and replaced the anger on his face with a smug look. This new expression filled Rain with some fear. "Guess what, Dragon Tamer? Your new friend is going to be here in half an hour. I have no friends!" Rain yelled, interrupting Patrick's words. His only friends had been reduced to pictures and characters in his worst memories. He also desperately hoped that the person Patrick referred to was not Sarris. "Obviously," Patrick said. He took a step into Rain's room. "Anyways, during the meeting, we decided that it would be best if the End Queen stayed with us for 2 months. It will strengthen our alliance, help us plan a battle at Glacierford against Herobrine, and help the two of you get to know one another since you are both linked together or something." The man surveyed Rain's room, which was sparsely decorated. His bed was in the back corner of the room, unmade because Rain had risen from his nap only moments ago. There was a small bedside table with a clock, a dresser positioned opposite of the bed, a rack of weapons and armor on the left wall, and a bookshelf against the right wall. A few books and 3 pictures filled the minimal space on his bookshelf. Rain dreaded having Patrick in his room. His bedroom was the only safe place that he could call his own in the entire Frostbourne castle. He especially did not want Patrick to look at his pictures, which were his prized possessions right now. Unfortunately, he could do nothing to get his boss out. "I don't think either of us want to get to know each other, and why are you telling me this?" Rain asked. Patrick stared for a moment at the bookshelf, inspecting the pictures. He smirked once more. "Well, Dragon Tamer." He paced around the room a bit. "I've decided on the punishment for your actions in front of the Ender Watchers. Since you are so fond of the End Queen, you'll be the one to show her around the castle." He turned to face Rain again and pointed at him threateningly. "But if you misbehave in any way, insult her, hit her, whatever, you're a dead man. Do you understand?" Rain clenched his teeth. The castle was huge, meaning he would be stuck with one of his worst enemies for at least 2 hours. Restraining himself from calling her an idiot or punching her would be a difficult task. He narrowed his eyes at Patrick. He already despised this man, but now he hated him even more. Unfortunately, he had no choice but to comply with Patrick's order. Yeah, I get it. Be nice to the queen or you turn me back into a zombie," Rain muttered. Patrick smiled menacingly. "Good. I'm glad to see you understand. Make yourself look presentable. You look even more dead than you already are. She'll be here soon." He marched toward the door and left Rain alone in his room. Rain took a deep breath of relief once Patrick disappeared, leaving him alone in his safe place. Even though he had to give one of the people he despised the most a tour in a little while, he was glad Patrick had finally left his room. He shot a glance at himself in a small mirror above his dresser, wondering what Patrick meant by presentable. He brushed his hair and put his blue hoodie on over an old shirt. As presentable as anyone's getting, he muttered. Rain opened the double doors leading into the training room in the Frostbourne castle. The room was mostly unfurnished with only a few racks of weapons, training dummies, and benches. The empty space in the middle of the room was dedicated to mock fighting and training. And this is the last room, the training room, Rain said in an understood voice. He stepped into the center of the room while the end matriarch followed behind him. So far, he had managed to act respectful, but maintaining this attitude grew more difficult as the tour continued. Fortunately, his job was nearly over. Unless you're as stupid as I think you are, you can probably guess what we do here. Any questions before I go stare out a window and wonder why Patrick thought this alliance was a good idea? Rain could feel her glaring at him. Sarris, who had not spoken much during the tour, was surprised that the dragon tamer had waited this long to insult her. The last 2 hours they had spent touring the building had dragged on for eternity, making her dread the next 2 months in this place. She, too, was having trouble restraining herself from insulting the tour guide. Yes, I have one question, she said slowly. Why do you call me stupid? Sarris and Rain were standing 1 block apart, staring eye to eye. Rain laughed in Sarris's face. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because you attacked us earlier. Seeing her standing this close to him made him want to punch her. Sarris rolled her eyes. You were in the meeting we had with Sir Patrick. You know why that happened, and you know why the alliance is for the best. Maybe you're the stupid one if you cannot change your perceptions. Victorious satisfaction filled her, for she had finally insulted Rain back. She knew Vortis would not be pleased with this comment, but she did not care right now. Her words rang in Rain's ears, and they were infuriating. He clenched his fist and closed his eyes, and punched Sarris on the left side of her jaw. Rain paused for a moment. Eyes now open, he realized she had disappeared. Right, she's basically an Enderman. She can teleport, he thought. Suddenly, a punch to his left arm sent him to the ground. He quickly got up and saw his attacker glaring at him from a few blocks away. I should have done that when you first showed your dumb face in the end, Sarris yelled. Punching him made her happier than insulting him. Well, I shouldn't have bothered taming your little pet. I wish I had gone after you and those ugly Ender freaks you rule with, Rain yelled before charging at her. He prepared to land a kick in her stomach, but she disappeared again. Ceris rematerialized behind her enemy and slammed her foot into his back, causing him to grunt in pain. You think you can fight a warlord? You're full of yourself. Suddenly, she felt his hand grab her foot. Next thing she knew, she was toppling to the ground awkwardly. Her enemy had regained his footing and kicked her in the right side. She felt another blow hit her shoulder. Now, she was really enraged. Rain was both surprised and happy that he could land a few blows on his enemy. Well, I'd say I'm doing a pretty good job. Look who's on the floor! He raised his leg so he could slam his foot into her back like she had done moments ago. Another instance of her teleporting away annoyed him. Coward! You afraid— Ah! Before he could finish his sentence, she grabbed him from his left side and hurled him into a wall. He slumped to the floor and felt a fist hit the center of his chest. With lightning-fast reflexes, he managed to grab her fist before it could hit him again. Sarris had not been this angry since her last fight with her cousin before his exile. She knew she could easily kill Rain, since he was far weaker than Lance. But she was afraid of what might happen to the prophecy if she killed her partner. Sarris took advantage of the fact that Rain had grabbed her hand and swung him away from the wall. Unfortunately for her, Rain refused to let go of her hand, pulling her down with him. The fighters trapped themselves in a wrestling match that lasted several minutes. It became clear that Sarris, as the more experienced fighter, dominated the fight. Rain finally managed to break free of her grasp and find his feet. He glared at his enemy, who had jumped off the floor as well. Although he knew she was stronger than him, he dreaded the thought of surrendering to her. She raised a fist and ran full speed at him. He too raised a fist and hit her in the jaw again before she reached him. Sarris fell backward a few blocks. Pain radiated in her jaw, indicating that her adrenaline rush was running low. She needed to end this fight, so she teleported to the left side of Rain. She rapid-fired repeated punches at his shoulder, moving her fists as fast as her body and power would allow. Rain yelped in pain as she hit his shoulder faster than he had seen anybody ever move. He fell to the ground once more. Fortunately, his enemy toppled over too, landing on top of him. Rain rolled himself away from her immediately, not wishing to be near her. They both half sat, half laid on the floor, glaring at each other in hatred and panting in exhaustion and pain. Sarris took slow, deep breaths. Never taking her eyes off her enemy. Anxiety began to fill her stomach as she began to regret fighting an ally's shoulder. She knew that Vortis would be mad at her for such a foolish move, but she also feared the Frostbourne's reaction. I have to fix this somehow, she thought. Her mind raced for a solution. Suddenly, an idea came to her. But she despised her own idea. Sarris tried to forget this idea and think of a new solution, but nothing entered her mind. The tense silence continued for a few more minutes as she searched her own brain for ideas. Finally, she realized she still had only one idea. "Look," Sarah said in an unusually low voice as she stood up. Her body was beginning to ache from Rain's punches and kicks. "I value this alliance, so I would rather not fight you. Let's make our own alliance." There could be no turning back at this point. She took 2 steps toward the dragon tamer. "An alliance," Rain said slowly. Although he would never admit it, he was afraid right now. Ceris scared him slightly, but he feared Patrick's reaction more. If word about this fight traveled to his boss, this would probably be Rain's final mistake. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and continued to stare at her, trying to keep the fear off his face. Ceris took a deep breath. "Instead of fighting again, why don't we try to be friends?" She hoped she would not regret those words. The question shocked Rain, but his own feelings surprised him more. Although a part of him wanted to punch her again, the prospect of friendship held him back. For several months he had been an undead super soldier, simply following Patrick's orders. His interest in having friends disappeared when all his friends died and the strangers around him began to bully him. Her offer, however, ignited a hopeful spark in him. Rain's posture relaxed and he sighed, looking away from Ceris. I don't know. Why would anyone want to be friends with someone like me? I haven't really been the friendliest person in a while." "It's better than fighting," Ceris shrugged awkwardly. Her heart raced as she waited to see whether he would accept her offer. Rain smiled. It was the first real smile he had formed in months. "Okay, I guess we're friends now. What do we do?" The two were standing directly in front of each other. Sarah smiled and put her hand on his shoulder. She, too, had not smiled like this for a long time. "We'll figure that out. First, let's agree never to talk about this fight again. It will be our secret." Fortis and her allies could never know about their brawl. Rain glanced at her face. He noticed a welt forming on her jaw where he had hit her. Quickly, he realized that this would signify their fight as soon as Patrick saw it. He scratched his own face with his left hand and immediately grunted in pain. "Ugh!" This arm suddenly hurt horribly from her speed attack. "Trust me, I don't want Patrick finding about this, but he's going to think something happened when he sees that bruise." Rain pointed at her jaw, stuttering a little as he spoke. "And I'm pretty beat up too." Sarris gasped. She stayed silent a moment to think of a solution. "Well, let's just say I fell down the stairs when you showed me the outside of the castle and hit my face. Then you tried to help me back up. You fell down and hit your arm badly." Rain scoffed. "Patrick will never believe that. Patrick would never believe that Rain had done something kind and gentlemanlike to Sarris. We'll say I was laughing so hard at you that I fell over." Sarris chuckled. Their new friendship would be a surprise to everyone, but it gave her the purest sense of happiness she had felt in years. "Good idea. Can you help me find my way back to my room?" It would take Sarah some time to learn the layout of the castle. Rain nodded and motioned for her to follow him out of the room. He guided her to the guest bedroom and then went to his own room. He hoped to sleep away the multitude of events and wake up to a fresh start. The prospect of spending time with his new friend excited him. Rain changed into his pajamas and re-entered his bed, which was still unmade from his nap earlier. Peace filled him as he drifted off to sleep. A vision of an old, good memory filled his dreams. He remembered being 13 years old in his hometown. He felt the icy blast of a snowball hitting the side of his head. On this day, Abigail had initiated a snowball fight with him. This was the first good memory to visit his dreams in a long time. Suddenly, the sound of some guards talking in the hallway woke him up before his dream self could hit Abigail with a snowball. He glanced at his clock. It was 1:33 a.m. He groaned, disappointed that his good dream had ended, but he laid back down and closed his eyes. A second later, his eyes were opened again. The dream had blessed him with a brilliant idea. He leaped out of his bed to go find Sarris.